All right, what is up? Welcome back in another episode of GC Live. Wes Mitchell here, Chris Clark. As always, brought to you by our guy, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans, ClintHammond.com, 803-422-6797, NMLS number 71597. As always, we always tell you, if you're in the market for a home, or if you think in the future you may be in the market for a new home, just give Clint a shout. More information, ClintHammond.com. Phone number 803-422-6797. If you want to just shoot him an email, that information is at his website as well. Clint, great Gamecock, great dude, longtime supporter here of GC Live. All we ask is that if that is something you're in the market for right now, give him an opportunity to earn your business, just because he supports us here on GC Live. Again, he is Chris. I am Wes. Great show lined up for you here today as South Carolina rolls through maybe about at the midway point, if you count the very, very end of May when they truly started the official visits. And Chris, I know Beamer went on 107.5 and said, hey, we got about 23 days of just nonstop recruiting. That's typically been the case. The modern recruiting calendar, this is how it works in June. Gamecocks sort of right in the middle of that right now, man.
They're right in the thick of it. And so, two big official visit weekends down, one big official visit weekend, which is going to be the weekend of June 20th to go. And, man, a lot has happened already, right? We have finally gotten to that point that I think a lot of fans wanted to get to, which was give me some of those commitments, right? We saw a few of those over the past few days, but I think alongside that, and just as important, is getting the stage set to where you can maybe get to the finish line with some of the other prospects, right? We knew that over the course of these 3 weekends, you were going to have the possibility of getting some guys on campus that may go ahead and shut things down this summer and commit to you. But we also know that really, I think all of the guys, Wes, that are taking an official visit to South Carolina this summer have other schools on their docket, whether they made them before they got to South Carolina or whether they're looking to make visits after they visit South Carolina. For some guys, South Carolina was the very first one up. These guys, a lot of them want to go through the process, want to continue going through it, and then decide end of summer, during the season, or whenever it may be. So you do have some tangible evidence now of getting some more commitments in this class. But I think, Wes, you look at these first couple weekends, a lot more progress has been made in terms of getting a little bit farther down the road with some of the other potential acquisitions in this class.
Yeah, highly successful so far. And, I think it's one of those things where you go into it knowing, and I think we tried to set the stage, try to set the table for those who read on Gamecock Central, like, hey, a lot of these guys do have multiple visits set. And you're just, especially if you have one of the early visits, and we'll certainly start to look ahead soon to that June 20th weekend. But if you have one of these first 2 weekends, you're just trying to set a high bar. And do you hope maybe a few of them go ahead and fall your way? Of course you do. And we've seen that with 3 guys, and we're going to talk about all 3 of them. The Harris twins, Aiden and Andrew, 4-star defenders from Weddington, North Carolina. They both commit. And then KJ Johnson. Now, those guys do all fit in that category. There were other schools they were looking to visit, and, they just knew where they wanted to be, so they shut it down. Most of the time, especially when you start talking about like a Carter Meadows, for example, this is an on-3 5-star. This is a guy who's already worked very hard, I think, to whittle his list down to those 4 schools. If you look at what he says about the 4 schools, you can tell there's already like a very genuine connections there with all those schools. And, to me, it'd just be a shock. Now, recruiting will shock you, but it'd be a shock to me if that guy didn't just say, you know what, I'm going to follow through, take all 4, and then I'm going to make a decision. And you just hope when he sits down and compares all the pros, the cons, the everything in between, that you hold up. And, that's going to be the case for a lot of these guys. But I do think it certainly helps the fans. It certainly helps the recruiting momentum, if that's a thing. I, for one, believe it is. If you can get a couple of these guys to just go ahead and lock in for you and sort of maybe create a few headlines for you, put yourself in a position to be talked about in the recruiting landscape, and not just here locally, but on the national level as well. And Chris, let's start with this past Saturday night, the Harris twins. We knew this was a true package deal, which you don't always see. It played out like that. And, you know, in true package deal fashion, the brothers truly committed together to South Carolina, which, as we know, is actually a little bit unique.
Yeah, they did. You don't see that a ton. At least what is this, Wes? The third known set of twins, or the third in the recent era, right? You had the Jasper and Casper Brinkley, you had the Lindsay twins, and now you're going to have Aiden and Andrew Harris. And so, yeah, you got the sense very much, or not more than a sense. You knew this one was going to be a package deal. And you know, Aiden is the higher ranked guy, Wes, but Andrew also a 4-star on the On3 industry ranking, and also a guy that the coaching staff really wanted. And I think that made a big difference here. You know, I had the opportunity to talk to both of those guys this weekend, and they each had some different answers as to their, you know, what they liked the most on the official visit. And keep in mind, they had already committed by this point, and their reasons for making a commitment. But both of them definitely mentioned their bonds, their relationships with the coaching staff, and the consistency of South Carolina. You know, for Andrew Harris, his relationship with Clayton White. Clayton White, during those conversations, is the one who talked a lot with Andrew Harris about, hey, let's make you from, you know, a defensive end or a hybrid defensive end to more of a true outside linebacker at the next level. And you can tell Andrew Harris has an affinity and a lot of love for Clayton White, and that relationship weighed very heavily. And Aiden Harris mentioned, hey, I had ups and downs with other schools. South Carolina was always there. He talked about Shane Beamer, Travian Robertson, Jordan Dove, who is an assistant defensive line guy for the program. He's had the longest relationship actually with him on staff. So really, I think a total team effort here, Wes, when you're looking at Aiden and Andrew Harris, and a couple guys that I think you really like them athletically. You like their frame, what they can do. And I know we can dive more individually into each of their games, but really nice pickups here for South Carolina.
Yeah, I'll warn everybody again. We got Thatcher joining us. The puppet's here. If you see me going away, if you see me looking away, that's why. He was chewing on a bone. He's finished the bone, and now he's decided to see what we're doing over here. So, yeah, that's where we are.
But he doesn't start chewing on a cord or something.
I know. If I disappear, that is probably why. He's just gone right through the Ethernet cord. But yeah, man, let's dive into each of these guys like individually a little bit more, and we're going to try to bring back. I feel like we haven't done this enough lately. We haven't done shows enough lately.
That's
either,
true.
But we definitely haven't done the old live film review. And so this is Aiden. Obviously, Aiden, an interior guy. But, Chris, I think prototypical 3-technique defensive tackle here, man. This is a guy who is going to sort of fit that mold we've seen South Carolina have with a TJ Sanders, with a Taka Hemingway. I think, you know, you see, dude, I don't want to say there's a lot of guys that can move at this freakish ability, but you do see it. On top of that, I think when you watch this, you're going to see a guy who not only can use his speed, his juice, his quickness, his long arms to kind of disengage, but he actually closes to the football very well and finishes plays as well. You know, I think that's something that's going to serve him well in that role at South Carolina, where they're going to do everything they can. We know they like to be aggressive up front. We know they like to turn their guys loose. We know they like to put these guys in a position to go rush the passer. And, you know, TJ is TJ ended up being a pretty high standard to try to reach. So, I certainly think Aiden has that upside. The thing about it is, you truly never know how close to the ceiling there a guy will get, but certainly Aiden has the ability to be that type of pass rusher. You see a nice swim move there, closes on the quarterback quickly, and then quarterback not having a good time at this moment. Even Aiden, Chris, it appears if you really watch this film, much like TJ, also has his own patented celebration already. So I do like that aspect as well.
Yeah, that is a bonus. No, I mean, this is a guy that's just, and I got a chance to talk to their high school coach, Aiden and Andrew Harris's high school coach, Andy Capone at Weddington this week, and he had some great insights on him. And, one of them, my favorite, Wes, is that, this is a guy that can do an Aiden Harris, a standing backflip, a backhand spring. He's like going and doing like stunts with the cheerleaders at his school. Like, this is just a super athletic guy. And not the biggest guy in the world right now in terms of his frame, right? Like right now, maybe 250 pounds, never going to be a 320-pound defensive tackle. If that's what you're looking for, I don't think you're going to find it in Aiden Harris, but this is a guy that, as his coach told me, can come in easily / quickly put on 20, 25 pounds and not lose his ability to move. And I mean, what you see on film there, Wes, a guy that can not only move and use his hands, he plays violent. He has a motor, which you love to see. It's not a guy that's wasting his talent. He is maximizing the talents that he has because he plays really, really hard. So really nice get for South Carolina because you want to get in guys who are young defensive tackles who you can come in, develop. He's got some versatility up front. And he's got special types of athletic traits that I think are going to make him a good fit in that kind of Tonka TJ role.
Yeah, and looking back, I don't know if he ran track this year as a junior, but I was reading back on him, and I'm not saying he didn't. He may have, but looking back it probably would have been his sophomore year, is a guy not just doing the big boy track, usual exploits. You'll see like shot put, you'll see discus, you'll see the big boys do some of that. But it's out there running the 100. I think I ran 11.7 in the 100 at like 255 pounds at the time. I think was in the 400 or was in the 4x1 relay maybe with his track team. Like this is a guy who at a really for a high school kid and on the track, a massive size was out there, competing and actually or being competitive, you would say, which I think speaks to that freakish ability. Like you said, like the motor, I think there's a little bit of a mean streak here on the field. Some physicality. You see him on there making a couple plays on special teams, which I think that to me just speaks to the mindset, but also is going to serve you well at a place like South Carolina anyway, especially early in your career when you're trying to find a way to get on the field. And, Chris, let's call it like it is too. They have had to go pretty heavy into the sort of portal in terms of recruiting that defensive tackle spot, recruiting the interior of the defensive line. And, they've got some high school guys that I think are a little bit more not under the radar, but obviously not ranked as high as Aiden is. So to go ahead and get Aiden Harris committed, and we obviously know they got PJ Dean out there that they're Final 3 for. You've got Noah Clark, who you spoke to on Sunday, who took his official visit, to start to kind of build out maybe the foundation of this position going into the future via high school recruiting, which I know is what they truly want to do. I think this is a big step for Carolina. It's a big step for Travian Robertson. Like we know Travian develops these guys once he gets them on campus. So I think this was a kind of a landmark big boy recruiting battle win for Travian Robertson. You look at the top 10 of that Aiden Harris, the schools he was considering, man, it was kind of a who's who of college football.
Yeah, and somebody, Wes, dropped in the chat. Let me properly credit. Yeah, Clint Morrison, a little Melvin Ingram. And, I mean,
That's a big sentence, boys. That's a big sentence.
It's a big sentence. I actually had the thought and didn't bring it up because maybe I was too scared because that is such a big sentence. But hey, I mean, like you said, Wes, TJ Sanders is a big sentence. You're saying you're going to be a second-round NFL draft pick who can go out there and wreck shop in the SEC. You know, Melvin was interesting. I was going back and looking at Melvin's rivals profile, Wes, from the 2007 class. 6'2", 224 pounds. And Melvin, I mean, the stuff he could do in high school was absolutely insane. You know, just he could do everything. I mean, some of the most ridiculous plays you'll see. By the time he finished up at South Carolina, he was 276 pounds. And I don't even know what he plays at in the NFL right now. I think it's even less than that, right? But a guy who could play inside, who could play outside, like began his career as a linebacker. The point is, if you have, you know, freakish kind of athletic traits, even to play defensive tackle, you don't have to be 310. You know, you can go in there and he'll definitely have to add some weight. He can't go in there and play defensive tackle in the Southeastern Conference at 250 pounds. But he does, I think, have the frame to do it, to put on needed weight. He's got, you know, the disposition. And when you look at his film and then you look at the personality traits and how he operates, like just go sit down and have a conversation with him, you can tell he cares about being good. And so you like that total package that he brings from that standpoint.
Hey, we'll have to try to find out if, like Melvin, Aiden can throw a football like 75 yards from his knees. That was one of Melvin. I mean, Melvin, literally one of those guys that, like, I feel like this thing gets thrown around. He could be good at anything. I think Melvin, if you just said, "Hey, man, we want you to go play lacrosse, take a day to figure out the rules, and then just go out there," and I mean, he would wreck shop. So, yeah, if Aiden is close to any of that we're talking about, he's going to have a very long, very successful career at South Carolina alongside his brother. I was going to say, by the way, if we got any old heads on here, were there any other twins? Like, it's not a trivia question. It is a legitimate question. We know about the Brinkleys. We know about the Lindsays. Anybody else in South Carolina history? By the way, the AI has not taken our job yet because I asked ChatGPT if there were any other twins, and it gave me the two big ones, and it gave me also Jalen Kilgore and Gerald Kilgore.
Not twins.
Was not aware they were twins. And it gave me somebody else, another brother. Who would it have been? It was a past brother duo, but they were also very much not twins at all. So as far as I'm like, this is when man, our guy Tommy Moody, rest in peace. Like, he would have known, you know, throughout the history of Gamecock football if there have been any other twins. But this is kind of cool, man. It is unique. Like, it's not unheard of, but it is unique that these guys are coming in together. Not just brothers. Carolina's had brothers. That's really not – it's a little bit unique, but it's not incredibly unique to have brothers.
Yeah, and
twins
Jeremy Johnson Music mentioned Porter twins. So the Porters have moved on, but they were actually not twins. I think Rondo Porter was the younger brother of Ronnie, so they were not twins either. They were brothers, but they weren't twins, and they're not on the roster anymore. So
yeah,
doesn't count.
Speaking of twins, let's go to the other of the two twins, that being our guy Andrew Harris, who see if we can pull this off 2 times in a row. Yep, there we go. We got film. If you're on the video version of the show here of Andrew, and like we talked about earlier, man, there will be a little bit of a projection. It's a little bit of a transition, I think. But we have seen within this defensive structure, within their approach on defense, we saw it with this last linebacker class, and we're seeing it specifically here, actually with both the guys, Keenan Britt and Andrew Harris. a willingness to take guys that have the traits, but maybe are playing a little bit more of that edge, stand-up, pass rush linebacker, and then turn them a lot of times, I think, in this scheme, Chris, into maybe a will linebacker, a spot that they're going to use sometimes off the edge. They're going to let them rush the passer. But I think when you play on the line of scrimmage, that physicality you have to have, the ability to disengage as a linebacker, a lot of times it will translate. And if you watch Andrew kind of run sideline to sideline, he does have that physical ability. He does have those physical traits. The real transition part, the projection part, will just be the truly playing in space part, the instincts, the learning, probably run fits and the cues you're looking for from an offensive scheme as far as what you're seeing. But I mean, let's not cut Andrew short, man. Like, this kid is a freak athlete in his own right, also a 4-star guy, and it sounds like he and Clayton White have really, I would say, honed in on a plan for him as a player that they both seem comfortable with.
A little bit of a comp here, Wes, maybe a little Brad Johnson-esque, because, you remember Brad coming out, he was probably a little bit taller, maybe an inch taller than Andrew Harris, but he was a guy that played with his hand down at the high school level, even played like like a very undersized, like nose tackle sometimes at the high school level, and then eventually transitioned to a linebacker spot, a will linebacker spot for Clayton White at South Carolina. And so, not saying they're the same type of player, but a similar situation, right? And maybe a little bit of a similar skill set. You look at Andrew Harris on film, he's playing that kind of bandit role for Weddington for his high school team. So he's definitely comfortable playing up close to the line of scrimmage, sometimes putting his hand down, sometimes standing up, rushing the passer, getting out in space. And so there will be some things that he'll need to transition to successfully to play linebacker at the next level. And so, if you think about him playing as a will linebacker, just from a technical standpoint, playing in space, like Wes mentioned, making reads, probably doing more pass coverage, right? Zone drops, picking up backs and tight ends and man coverage. Those will be things that he'll have to get more used to and that he'll have to hone in on technically. But if you're just looking for the physical traits and characteristics, he already looks like a big linebacker if you see him in person. We do know that Clayton White likes to have guys playing that will spot like a Bam Scott who can go rush the passer. And so Andrew Harris is going to bring you some juice there too. So will it be a transition? Yes, but it's one that Clayton White seems to believe in. It's one that Andrew Harris seems to believe in too. And Wes, talking to his high school coach, he seemed to be on board with it and said that he told college coaches the same thing, that he felt like linebacker could be his future too.
Well, and dude, you see this more and more because a lot of times at the high school ranks, if you're at Weddington and you have these two just like, what did Muschamp call them? Is this a Muschamp thing? I don't know. You have these two like hellraisers basically that at that level, man, you're going, let's just turn these guys loose. You know what I'm saying? Like, the guys that typically would have played linebacker in high school back in the day, coaches are saying, nah, let's just put them up on the line and let them go get the quarterback. Let's just let them be disruptive. So I think you have fewer and fewer true linebackers at the high school level. So it sort of puts you in a position where you have to be very, now if you can find those guys that are true linebackers, yes, it's a situation where you got to try to land them, but there's only so few out there. And so I think you have to be a little bit creative in finding guys that can go play this position and maybe have to transition to it. Somebody mentioned like a Bam Martin Scott. That's Michael Lynn. I mean, that's a good comp too. Like that's someone who, yeah, he was more listed as a linebacker out of JUCO, but if you watched his film, there was a lot of pass rush there for him. And, I think he'll be, back to Andrew, certainly that's a position where Carolina will bring their linebackers as pass rushers, but there'll be a lot of other responsibilities that go along with that as well. But I do think, two guys, and he and Keenan Britt, who you like the thought of just stacking them with that linebacker class you've just signed. Chris, my understanding, we know recruiting is fluid. If a guy pops up that's just a no-brainer, comes out of nowhere, do you completely rule out taking another linebacker? I don't think you ever rule anything out in recruiting. Certainly, they will check the portal after the season and all that as well. But to me, they are in a situation where they're pretty much done at linebacker in terms of the targets we know they've been in on. And frankly, they've already gotten a pretty good jump on this 27 class at that position with 4 or 5 of the top guys thereafter who are also top prospects in the country who have all visited in the last few weeks.
Yeah, they are. I mean, thinking just off the top of the head, I mean, Jalathan Mayfield from Lincolnton's a guy they've had on campus several times. He's a highly ranked guy, someone that I think they're pretty far down the road with and have a legitimate chance to land. And there are others. But you start thinking about the thought process going back to 2026, having Andrew Harris, having Keenan Britt, and then thinking about what you signed in 2025, which was, not a giant linebacker class, but there was some depth to it, right? You brought in some different types of guys. You brought in multiple guys. So it kind of makes sense to not go out and say, hey, we're going to take 4 linebackers again, in the 2026 class. Now you can have some balance and really kind of space out who you're bringing in. But you look at, the young guys are going to have from the 25 class, these 2 coming in, there's some versatility, right? There's some athleticism. There's different skill sets. There's different body types. And so you kind of like the room that they have right now, but the one that they continue to put together for the future of the defense.
Yeah, and all those guys, let's see, all of them? Yeah, all of them were in for the spring as well, which,
Yep.
as we know, can give you at least a little bit of a head start on getting just acclimated overall with college and the scheme and everything that is expected of you within this football program. I want to talk about KJ Johnson, of course, the third of the 3 recent commits to South Carolina. But first, Chris, let's tell everybody about a couple of great sponsors, huh?
Yeah, our friends over at Palmetto Golf and Belts. That's palmettogolfing.com, run by our guy, Brandon Cone. He is a South Carolina fan. He is a longtime Gamecock Central member. So make sure you go check out him, support his local small business. What can you get at Palmetto Golf and Belts? Well, you can get golf apparel, custom golf tees, custom golf gloves. They got amazing needlepoint belts and more products in the lab. Brandon's cooking some things up coming out soon. PalmettoGolfing.com. Go check out their selection. You actually don't have to be a golfer to go shop there because, well, you could buy somebody a really cool gift. You could also get yourself one of the needlepoint belts. They're very well made. They look awesome, and they're much more affordable than some of the other ones that you're going to see out there. He's got the cross design. He's got the palmetto tree and moon design. He's got South Carolina colors with the garnet. He's got the blue and much more. So go check him out. Support a local business who supports us and is a big Gamecock fan. Palmetto Golf and Belts, PalmettoGolfing.com.
And somebody else that is a great supporter of this show. He's not, I'm not going to lie to y'all, he's not a South Carolina fan. He's more of an SEC guy. But it's our friend Andy Luedecke at My Perfect Franchise, myperfectfranchise.net, 404-973-9901, or Andy at myperfectfranchise.net is his email. You may be saying, what does My Perfect Franchise do? Well, essentially, if you are looking for business ownership, franchising, maybe just that could be as like, hey, I want to completely shift out of what I'm doing right now to build a legacy, or more along the lines of like a side biz type thing. My Perfect Franchise, the reason it's called that is he wants to find the perfect franchise for you. So what he's going to do, sit down with you, talk about what you're sort of looking for in your next step of life in business, what your financial commitment can be, what your time commitment can be, and then he is going to help match you up with a franchise that is looking for people like you. Two of the best parts about it, it's absolutely free to you, and he's going to help walk you through every single step of the process. So if a franchise is looking for that franchisee, there are a lot of steps you're going to have to take. So essentially what I'm saying is Andy is going to help walk you through all those steps because he has done the exact same with himself and with others. 404-973-9901. Call or text Andy today. Chris, let's get into KJ, a guy. I just like KJ as a kid, first of all, man. Like, from a second I talked to this kid, I've been pulling for him. Didn't know if he'd end up at South Carolina or not, but they were one of his earliest big offers. And then he committed to South Carolina silently in mid-May. He went public with that commitment on Monday, was on campus 2 weekends ago, and then goes public yesterday. And his recruitment ended up taking off, man. Ole Miss was heavily involved, Mississippi State heavily involved. Those two had offered, Arkansas had offered, West Virginia had offered, Alabama was involved and brought him in on a visit for, unofficially, did not offer. But hey, man, we say this a lot, but got to put him in the category, right? Another Tigray special.
Yeah, I feel like it's a broken record, but at this point when Tigray, I like how Tyler, our colleague on the radio show, Wes, put it. He said that Tigray's like carrying around the little marker before you get on the roller coaster, where like you have to be, I guess you would have to be like at least 73 inches, so 6'1". If you're not that, you need not apply. But like you look at all the guys he's recruiting in this class, and they all are long, athletic, like versatile guys, and KJ's certainly one of those. Also had a chance to talk to his high school coach at Woodlawn, Wes, and he had a lot of good things to say about this kid. First of all, he's 6'1", 6'2", 175, 180 pounds, so he's got that length. He's got position versatility because he played a lot of safety last year for Woodlawn, but going to play more corner this year. He's been working out with a personal trainer. South Carolina thinks he can play corner or nickel. They really love his versatility. He can run. He's 10-7 in the 100, and he's a basketball player, so he can jump. So he's another guy you go, hey, let me go look up his Huddle, his football highlight film on Huddle like you're doing here, Wes. He's got basketball highlight reels too. You can go check him out. Blocking shots, dunking, all those things at the high school level. So a lot of athleticism. And one more nugget here. This coming season is just his second year of high school football. So this is a guy that has a lot of upside and potential still left.
Chris, man, I mean, you watch the film, and another thing that stands out to me is I don't know if you can see, but I'm not doing the T-bar that is now
do that.
Disallowed or the defense offense has to stop, the return he has to stop. But long arms, man, that's another. All I'm hearing as you go over those traits is check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark. And then it's just, hey, does a guy come in? Do they work? Do they develop? Do they stick it out? It's not easy. I'll be honest. It ain't easy playing for Tigray. Like, this dude has very high expectations, and I mean that as a compliment. It's not easy because, dude, he is as laid back of a guy if you talk to him or see him in an interview setting, but he has incredibly high expectations for his players, and he pushes them, but he develops them, right? Like, this is a guy who develops his players as well as anybody in the country at that position. And we have seen it, man, with the true blue, like, highly recruited guys, and we've seen it. I mean, Judge Collier, if you look at the rankings, man, this dude, frankly, was an afterthought in that class. If you just went down the commit list and it was sorted out, as it often is, by who's the highest ranked guy in the class. And now, what has Judge done? He's developed, he's worked. Tigray has developed him. He's going to be a draft pick at some point. So I look at, are all the guys going to work out? No, that's just how it works. Like, mathematically, not every guy's going to turn out, but you just you start to check all those boxes and you say, all right, I get it. I see what he's looking for. It doesn't necessarily have to be 4 or 5 star kid. And, you alluded to it as well. Versatility. Like almost all these guys you look at and you say, you maybe want to start them at corner because I think that's probably the most what's the word? That's maybe the hardest one to fill. Like guys that can truly move the way you have to move athletically in the SEC, I think it is at cornerback. So I think a lot of these guys, man, you start them at corner, start them out at corner, and then, but you have that kind of fail safe, that fallback. You can play nickel, which is a little completely different skill set as well, or they can play safety. And so I think when you have a guy that has that versatility, it increases your value as a player, increases your value as a prospect, because I know if it doesn't work out at one spot, I can move you. Also, I know if you get in a pinch depth-wise, you could be an option at another position as well.
Yeah, and I heard, one of the guys that officially visited over the weekend, and I truly can't remember if it was Wes Barnes or Joel Combe, again, 2 long, versatile guys, and one of them mentioned talking to T. Gray and the term flex 5 coming up, meaning you can go play any of them, if you need to. And ultimately, T. Gray is going to primarily play guys at one spot. We've seen guys at South Carolina play safety and nickel. We've seen guys play nickel and corner. Like there's some carryover there, but he does like to cross train those guys. And one thing that I've picked up on in this class specifically, Wes, is a lot of prospects really, really are liking the fact that they can come in and learn different positions. And that doesn't mean they're going to be jumping back and forth every single week from position to position, but they're going to get a taste and they're going to learn some of these other spots. And they really like that for their future pro prospects because the pros also want versatility, right, in their players in the secondary. So just an added bonus, and I think that's resonated with some of these guys that they brought in, and it resonated with KJ as well from what we've been told.
Yeah, this is Barnes now on film if you are watching on the video version of the podcast. Hard to see there through the raindrops, but that's 2 more guys. Like you said, dude, they fit the mold. You talk to them. I got the impression just reading what they told you, Carolina's a pretty big factor with both these guys.
Yeah, I think, and that's the thing. Look, and Combe just came out with his top 5 today, or his final 5, and Tennessee and Wisconsin and Missouri are in there. I can't even remember the other school off the top of my head. South Carolina's in there as well. And so he's got, 2 more officials coming up, to Wisconsin and to Tennessee. But as far as where South Carolina stands right off the visit, you like where they stand. You're going to have to survive and, survive these last 2 visits, but really like where they stand with him. Barnes, same thing. I think absolutely love the visit. Wes, this kid is extremely well put together. He's not only long at 6'2", but he's 185 pounds from what we've heard and seen. Looks even, if you said he was 200, you would believe it. And he's actually continued to pick up traction throughout the summer. Miami and North Carolina just offered. He's got Kentucky, Louisville, Rutgers officials. I think Miami, he's going to go take an official there. So he's continued, a little bit of a later bloomer. But, man, you just, look at these kids. You look at their film. You look at their measurables and their athleticism. You can see why Torian Gray really likes them. And if they can close out on some of the guys they have an opportunity to close out on, it'd be one heck of a defensive back class, I think.
Yeah, no doubt, man. A lot of this, there's going to be a little bit of wait and see. I think, hey, how did the other visits go? What happens on the other visits? Who pushes? Who doesn't? A lot of prospects, they all get grouped together, but they're all going through their own individual recruiting process. So what does that end up looking like? Of course, we know June 20th, Samari Matthews, who kind of has been the guy at corner, like that target for a long, long time for Carolina. Obviously you have Currents already committed there as well. So let's see how this thing kind of plays out in the end. I think it'll be Clint mentions Kari Adams. I think it's easy to forget about Kari just because he hasn't quite been on that public South Carolina radar maybe as much or as long as those other guys. But obviously, if you can get a Kari Adams, man, you're taking that guy all day long. Big time prospect, a top 10 corner in the country who took his official visit to South Carolina already. Let's talk a little camp, man. They are well on their way, kind of the almost daily, not daily, but almost daily, sort of little stretch of camps. And 2 of them last week, a 7-on-7 / O-line D-line camp on Monday of this week. These things roll on as this week goes on, man. And I want to talk briefly O-line, D-line yesterday.
Yep.
We, you and I were both out there, and we got to look at a young man who the buzz was like, this guy's maybe about as good as any that have been out there at camp in recent years, and that would be Maxwell Hiller, who is a 2027 prospect, offensive lineman. They a lot of places list him, Chris, as an interior guy. He was playing some tackle at camp. Depending on where you look, he's a number 2 or number 1 interior offensive lineman in the country for that 2027 class. And I actually exchanged messages with him. He had another great visit to Columbia this time. He's been on campus several times. And, man, that whole crew, Lonnie Teasley, Sam Serbay, Greg Atkins, getting guys that are highly recruited offensive linemen on campus early, building those relationships. Another example of that. But Hiller was out there having himself a day at O-line D-line camp.
Yeah, man, he was impressive. I mean, you saw him out there, and the size immediately stands out. He checks out, and then you watch him move, and then the one-on-ones and how coachable he is. He's got strength. He can move. A versatile guy up front because, as you mentioned, he played some inside. He played some outside. I don't think he was tested too much on the day, with maybe one exception, which was KJ Green, the big-time edge out there. They had some decent battles out there, but other than that, it was shut down city for Max Hiller. So this was his 3rd trip to South Carolina overall. So I think all in this calendar year too. So he's become plenty familiar with the program. Did get offered by Clemson earlier this week and mentioned that was a dream offer for him. So we'll see where that goes. I think it's still kind of early in the process, but definitely impressive. Oh, man, I just saw that. Wow. How did we miss that?
Ethan, are you a Gamecock Central subscriber?
Yeah, we need to get Ethan a prize.
If not, shoot me a DM on Twitter or shoot me an email, Wes@GamecockCentral.com.
Man,
we'll throw you a month, man. The Stadniks.
I was at their commitment ceremony.
Most definitely were twins, right?
They were twins. Yep. Man. Crazy.
That hurts. Because that was in the era we've been doing this.
Yeah, it was early, but they were 100% were twins. Yeah. So
good call.
Shout out to Ethan. Thank you for bringing that forth. We appreciate that.
You know what that tells me? There's probably some more in the past that we just don't know about.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That is a big swing and miss and whiff by us, though.
Yeah. Great call, Ethan.
Yeah.
Greg says, did we see Miles Rose from American Heritage? I did not I mean, we're bouncing around watching a lot of games out there, so that doesn't really mean anything, Craig. I don't know if you noticed him, Chris. Either American Heritage had a good day,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I watched some of their games, but yeah, like you said, we're bouncing around. I mean, we're sometimes there's. I mean, how many games are going on at once? I actually didn't go over to the old proving grounds, but I mean, there's 6 games going on at once, and going back and forth to the lineman camp, which is at the stadium, and all sorts of stuff. So I didn't really check him out. We kind of have, and I don't like doing it this way, but you have to for efficiency's sake. You kind of have some guys you know are going to be there that you know you got to put eyes on, and that's generally the focus. And sometimes you'll notice some other ones, but unfortunately, I didn't get to really take notice of him.
Yeah, I also am just very bad about, speaking of focus, just starting to talk to people,
Yeah,
and I'll find myself in a conversation and be like, "Oh, you weren't really watching
yeah,
at all." But conversation, networking, that's a part of the gig too. But I lose focus of the task at hand sometimes out there watching. I tell you, kid, I did watch a pretty good bit of, man, is someone I've had on my radar for a while, and that is Grayson Clary, the quarterback who is now at Raven Gap. Raven Gap now, they got some dudes, man. They got talent. And they actually have a senior quarterback returning in Gavin Owens, who is going to Memphis. Big kid, originally started his career at Wren High School here in South Carolina. Chris, you and I were watching him. I mean, he had a good day too, man. That's a good get for Memphis, I think. But Grayson transferred there. Will I guess maybe be in the rotation, or will be in a position to step in later on, and has an offer from Oregon. Is also, originally from the upstate, originally from Palmetto State. And I thought had a pretty good day, man. That kid's got a look about him. Like he can definitely spin the football. And, there was some talent out there beyond, I feel like, just the guys we were pre-tuned into watching.
yeah. There was. I mean, even you look at the lineman camp, there were some guys that, we looked at there, and I think most of them were offered, but you kind of like forgot they were going to be there, didn't know they were going to be there. Antoine McCoy out of North Carolina on the defensive line was one. There were some other offensive linemen who were, either have some Power 4 offers or have a South Carolina offer. But yeah, you're right. Clary was one, man. And now in the 2028 class, has size, was impressed by the way he threw the football. He seemed to have some command out there. And I was kind of curious, Wes, of how were they going to balance out those 2 quarterbacks, and both got to play. But I thought Clary threw some really nice balls. So he's got obviously a couple more cycles, to progress through the recruiting process, but has some good offers already, and looking forward to continuing to watch him. I'm sure it's not the last time we'll see him during this process.
Yeah, and look comfortable despite being in a new offense, which I think is impressive for a younger guy. You mentioned KJ Green earlier going up against Hiller. That's a physically impressive kid in terms of just an edge prospect, has that length, that frame, quick first step, and Sterling Lucas, as you would expect. KJ Green's a guy that's been to campus a lot. Sterling all over him just in terms of showing him love and giving him some of that one-on-one attention while he was on campus for that O-line, D-line camp. And, man, we got plenty more of these to come, huh?
Yeah, I'll be out there tomorrow, Wednesday. If you're listening to the podcast late, Wednesday the 11th, we'll be out there. We'll be out there Friday too. And then no official visits this weekend, Wes, because that'll be the weekend of the 20th. But there will be plenty to cover on the recruiting trail, and a whole heck of a lot from camp too. So we're right in the June is already flying by, man, but that's because there's a lot going on. So make sure you tune in to Gamecock Central. And Wes, we do need to try to do more shows overall, I would say.
Yeah.
We're struggling with that.
We don't need to try to do it. We need to just do
it. No, don't try. Yes, just do.
Yeah. I'll be interested. You know what just hit me? Every time they've been doing the 3 weekend thing for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not say no OVs yet.
That's
Because
true.
every now and then
It's true.
there won't be a big official visit weekend. But doesn't it feel like every now and then there's like, well, hey, this guy's like
coming
random.
on, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some random, unofficials for underclassmen. There can always be that. So you have to keep an eye on it.
Father's Day is Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's right.
This week. So I think they're probably, I don't know, maybe trying to avoid, if you can, being there on Father's Day potentially. But it seemed, who was the guy? Oh man, there's a defensive tackle that randomly OV'd in the middle of everything last year. God, what was that kid's name? I have him tied to Florida for some reason in my head. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Michael says portal action. Not a lot of football portal action right now, Michael. There is softball and baseball portal action, which you can read about on Gamecock Central. Not much football portal action at this time. So I don't know, man. I think that's all I got for today. But yeah, we need to hop back on probably here soon. And it's very, I will say this though, not an excuse. The days that there are camps, it's very, very difficult to make it work out to get on here. But certainly I think going into the next big official visit weekend and then coming out of it, we need to, we always have the stuff on Gamecock Central. So even if you don't see us on here on YouTube or on the podcast, there will be, the content is always on Gamecock Central. So if you don't see us on here, go check out GamecockCentral.com. I see people talking about free Soul in the comments. Still nothing there we're aware of. We'll see what happens. I don't know. Craig says, should he just sue and get it over with? I think you kind of have to, if it gets close enough to preseason camp and you don't have a solid answer. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. If you sue, doesn't that mean the answer is no? And so then you're only relying on the lawsuit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. If I sue you and the court says no, the NCAA is like, well, court said no. Yeah. Yeah. You actually have two at bats instead of one if you hold off on suing. Yeah, I hate to say you need to wait it out a little bit longer, but it's probably not the time to pull that lever just yet, even though it's been forever already. Just got to wait it out. Got to see. It's ridiculous it's taking this long, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yep. All right. He's Chris. I'm Wes. Appreciate y'all for hopping on. This has been good. If you are just joining us late, you can always go back and listen or watch the whole thing on YouTube, and it will be posted on all the major podcast platforms out there. Enjoyed it. Y'all have a good one.